Well, hi, welcome back on board. This is the third in the series of some video blogging I did up through the Riverland from Murray Bridge through to Morgan. This is the number 3. And from here we pick it up from Young Husband, Bow Hill Young Husband, heading up to Nildotty, to Swan Reach, Blanchetown, and then on to Morgan. There's been a gap of about nearly 7 or 8 weeks since I started doing this video blog, and this trip around, as most of you would know, this time of the year, the River Murray in South Australia has been in flood. I've put in a few pictures here of some before and after pictures, and it just shows an amazing amount of water that's now coming down the Murray River, and they're saying that it won't clear probably until mid to late January before it starts to drop its level. From Nildotty through to Swan Reach, there's quite a few decent lookouts overlooking the river, and as again I've shown some before and after pictures of the river in flood. This little bit of footage coming up here, it's hard to imagine, but 6-7 weeks ago all of these shacks along the river here were standing free. Even though the water level was up, they were nothing like what you can see now. All of the backwaters have now joined up, and it seriously is a massive amount of water coming down the river. There's a bit of footage coming into Swan Reach. Right where we are now, 6 weeks later, this was all flooded. This road that I'm turning off and heading down along to the river's edge was all closed, caravan park, all the shacks and everything that you see to the left of the bike is all now absolutely covered in water. You can see on the right hand side is a cafe that I pulled up for coffee, and I was sitting out under that umbrellaed area there. 6 to 7 weeks later, this whole area that I've just ridden through there was covered in water right up to the very steps of the cafe. The ferry that you can see back there, and there's another photo, was 50 or 60 metres from the cafe. 6 weeks later, the ferry was sitting out about 100 metres out in the river, and even that path to the left heading up to that palm tree into the hotel was covered in water. So here we are, 6 to 7 weeks later, and this is what that part of Swan Reach looked like. Absolutely amazing, and as you can see, all those river shacks there, most of those are flooded, at least in the downstairs area. Obviously the flooding along the river is nothing new. It's been going on probably since the dawn of time. In the early days, when the river was running free to the ocean, the navigation of the river was fairly important. You'll often see quite a lot of willow trees alongside rivers and so on. They're not so much for firewood and aesthetics, but of course in flood periods the willow trees would float up to the top and give the steamboat captains an idea of the deepest part of the river and the main channel. After leaving Swan Reach, I headed up to Blanchetown, and once again there's some footage there and some photos before and after of the floods. Well worth remembering, as I said, the steamboat industry along the river is part right through the Morgan, a huge amount of industry, and to this day there's remnants of boats, barrages and everything all along the river, and this particular map we're looking at now shows barrages and so on, the locks on the river up to the Victoria border. Coming into Blanchetown, I was able to cross over the bridge and go back around and take some shots of Blanchetown. As I said, 6 to 7 weeks ago, this is what you can see. The barrages were still and the lock was still open, and here we are 6 to 7 weeks later, and that whole area is completely flooded. Somewhere in there was the bowling green, and what's left of the lock. Absolutely amazing. After leaving Blanchetown, I had to once again cross back over the main bridge due to the fact that all the ferries in the area had closed. I took the eastern side road of the river heading up to Morgan. I couldn't cross over at Morgan into the old town area. I had to go around through Cadell and back in around behind the town. I've shown a bit of footage of the original old town area, and there's a few pictures there of various buildings at the railway station and the wharf area. The bit of movie footage that you'll see in a few minutes is what's happening there now with the flood. That whole area that I filmed in was once a parkland running right down to the river with the ferry out on the right hand side crossing over. That's well and truly all disappeared now, and as I said, there was still anticipation of another half a metre of water coming back down the river, so it was certainly something to see, and I've never seen the river in flood like that. There's also some pictures in there of the old wharf area around Morgan, and as I said, this was a tremendously busy steamboat port. That picture there of the wharf as it sits today, with the floods on, believe it or not, the water was 3/4 way up that docking area. Just goes to show that the water levels had been there before, and they knew what to anticipate in a flood zoned area in the river. If you get the chance, do the ride along that part of the Murray River. It's well worth seeing, and I've only shown a small fraction of the amount of roads and destinations along the way, and it makes for a really good bike ride. Morgan's another one of those towns, awful lot of history there, lots of things to see along the riverfront, plenty of hotels and cafes in the area, and as I said, well worth popping into the various museums and getting a good look at what that steamboat era was all about in the early days on the mighty Murray River. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Look forward to catching up with you next time. Please leave us a message and give us a thumbs up, and we'll catch you somewhere on the Great Open Road another day. Cheerio.